Hi, I'm Beth Rodden. I'm going to be showing you a few different ways to tape today. A couple different ways to tape your hands for when you're crack climbing, and then a way to tape your finger if you get a split on it. Also, the Metolius tape packaging has detailed instructions and some info on taping, and you can also check out their website. All right, I'm going to show you a couple ways for taping your hands for crack climbing. This is the way that I kind of use the most. So I start by ripping a few pieces of tape to get prepared. The first piece is going to go around my knuckles and the front of my hand. So for me, it's about that long. The next piece is going to go from my knuckles around my thumb. So it's a few inches shorter, probably about that long. And then the next three, I divide the roll of tape into threes. They're going to go in between my three finger, and it'll go from the back of my hand down to the front of my palm. So for me, it's about that long. And you take them all the same length. So now that I've got my pieces of tape all prepped, I go ahead and I start taping. And for me, I always find that it's really good to make sure I have an open hand so I don't tape too tight. So I start on the back of my pinky, and I want to make sure that I cover all my knuckles, so you go high enough, around the front of your knuckles, and then back around. So that's the first piece. You can kind of push it on there. The next piece, you want to go from the middle finger around to the front of your thumb. So I start like that. And this is the really important piece. Make sure that you get the meat of your thumb with tape, because I find that's where I get all my purchase when I'm crack climbing. So the next three, I'm going to take from the back of my hand through each of the middles of my fingers. So like that. You can kind of anchor it down like that. You go like that. And you anchor it down. Like that. And anchor it down. And these are to ensure that your first piece that you put on doesn't roll when you're jamming in a crack. So now that I've kind of got my first pieces on, I make sure that it's not too tight, and then I take my roll of tape and I start wrapping it around my hand. So again, I'm going to start on the back of my pinky, kind of anchor it down, make sure that I'm spreading my fingers wide. You kind of angle it down just under where you put your last one, as you can see, like that. And this next piece, I'll come almost to where I had my thumb piece. And then I'll just start wrapping down. And the minimum that I do is around my wrist bones. But if I'm doing something really wide, sometimes I go all the way down to halfway down my arm. So once I've got it around my wrist bones, I rip it off. I do a fist to make sure that I haven't made it too tight so I won't get pumped on the root, and I'm ready to go. I'm going to show you another way to tape for crack climbing. This way is nice because it leaves the front of your palm free of tape. So if you encounter any face climbing or face holds, it'll be a little bit nicer to grab those. Also, it doesn't wrap your entire hand in tape, which might make it so you get a little less pumped. So again, I'm going to start by pre-ripping a few pieces of tape. The first three are all going to be about the same length, and it's going to go from the back of my pinky knuckle to the side of my pointer finger knuckle. So for me, that's three pieces about this long. So I'm going to put those on. And again, I try and make it really clean when I'm putting it on. You don't want any folds or rolls, because those will just get in your way when you're climbing. And I overlap each piece of tape just a little bit. So once I've got those on, I take another piece, and this one's going to go from the bottom of your wrist bone up around your pinky and back down. Make sure that you cover the sides of your other pieces of tape. Go in between your fingers and then meet it back down. So it looks like that. You're gonna make another piece about that long. And this one's gonna go through the pointer and the middle finger. So again, right up your wrist bone, up through, and back down. And kind of make sure you can do a fist so it doesn't bunch too much. And the last piece, you don't really need to pre-rip too much. It's just gonna go around your wrist bone and anchor those two. And again, try and make a fist to make sure you haven't made it too tight so you don't get too pumped. And that's what your tape glove will look like. And the nice thing about this is you can take some scissors or a knife or something and cut it afterwards, and then you can reuse the whole glove. And then the only piece that you're going to need to redo is the one around your wrist bones. So you can kind of keep that, and then you'll just have to redo this one again. So that's another way to tape for crack climbing.